Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I've got loads of books to talk about today. So this right here is my TBR for Vampathon, and I'm going to explain what Vampathon is for those of you who don't know. So Vampathon is a readathon created by my friend Jodie at Vanilla Moon every Halloween week, so the last week of October. We basically use Vampathon to read a bunch of spooky, scary vampire books. Like watching all of your favorite like Halloween movies in the run up to Halloween. I know I always watch The Nightmare Before Christmas on Halloween night. So yeah, it's like that but with books, and you're reading all of the spooky books on your TBR. Bonus if they include vampires. So I'm actually going to link Jodie's announcement video with all of the prompts and like rules and like when it's taking place and all of that information in my description box. It is without a doubt every single year my favorite week ever, and this year I do have very high hopes for myself. I have given myself a very ambitious TBR, but I'm so excited about all the books, and I've tried to figure out how I could possibly physically read all of these books because we are going to be talking about 8 books today and we have 6 days to read them in. Yeah, I don't know how well I'm going to do this year, but I am so excited to read all of these books. I'm going to talk to you guys about them. Maybe you can use them as inspiration for your own TBR because I know a couple of the prompts are very specific. Every book that I've got here covers 2 of the prompts and some of them are pretty interchangeable. And I also think that this year is the year that I have the most actual vampire books on my list. I think there are at least 3 in here that include vampires. Usually I just have like 1 or like 2 maximum. Usually the Vampire Academy series is a staple on these Vampathon TBRs for me, which is kind of already spoiling one of the books. Why don't we just talk about that one first? So a classic on my TBR is the Vampire Academy series. So this year I will be reading Shadow Kiss. It's the 3rd book in the series. I had it on my TBR last year and didn't quite get round to it, but I am determined to read it this year. I think in this one, Rose and Lissa end up kind of leaving the school and like going a bit further afield. So I'm so interested to see what happens there. Because I didn't read one of these last year, the last time I read from the series was actually 2 years ago. I'm gonna have to kind of try and get back into the story. Hopefully it won't be too hard. I feel like these kind of books are so easy to read and that's why they're so good for a readathon. There are so many prompts that the Vampire Academy books can cover, including vampire book to movie. I've also created this really fun Vampathon spread in my bullet journal. It's basically got all of the books that I want to read on one side with their corresponding prompt, and then on the other side is the bingo board, which is like an optional part of the readathon. If you want to complete the readathon by completing a bingo by the end of it, that is what this is. I drew a few headstones and I'm going to colour them in every time I get one of the prompts. I had so much fun creating this spread and I feel like it's really easy to imitate if you guys want to join me. So I'm going to be reading the book Shadow Kiss for a book with a gothic setting because the school in this is very gothic. It's like a gothic building. Kind of ironic that they're going to be leaving the school a little bit more in this one, but I feel like it still counts as one of the settings. And I'm also reading it for a paranormal romance because there's tons of romance in this, which makes it so much fun. It literally says on the back cover, the immortal dead are on the prowl, and in a heart-stopping battle, Rose will have to choose between life, love, and the 2 people who matter most. So I'm guessing she's going to get torn between Lissa and her romantic interest, which I'm not going to spoil if you haven't read the series. This next book is my most anticipated on this whole list, I think, and that is Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio, who wrote If We Were Villains, which is literally just back there. This is a book that I pre-ordered a while ago and it was such a nice surprise to receive it a couple of weeks back. I did not realise that this was like a little novella, but that makes me really excited because I feel like it's the perfect fit for a readathon to like read some shorter books interspersed with the longer ones that I've got on my list. So the prompts for this one is thriller or mystery book because I think the main part of this book is like a huge mystery. I'm also going to be reading it for dark academia setting. It's set in the college's ancient cemetery. I feel like it'd also be a good one for reading in the dark because I think the author literally recommends you to read this one during the night time to really get into the mindset of this book. So every single one of these characters works the graveyard shift or the night shift in their respective jobs, and one dark October evening they find a freshly dug grave where no grave should be. I think they're trying to figure out who dug the grave and like what it's for. I don't know why they would care so much about a hole in the ground, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief and hopefully it ends up being a really great mystery. I am definitely saving this for an evening where I just want to get completely creeped out. A book that I already started I want to say a couple of years ago now, and I am dying to finish. I just realized it would be perfect for one of the prompts on this because when I already started reading it, I got kind of familiar with the setting and the themes and kind of what was going on. I feel like this will be perfect for a couple of the prompts that aren't like easy to find in the description of a book. The Devil Makes Three by Tori Bovalino. This gorgeous copy from Illumicrate I still have not finished. It's basically about these two students. They find an ancient book hidden in a secret tunnel beneath their school library and accidentally unleash this demon, which is so much fun. Like, it reminds me of like a classic Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode where they released that demon from, I think it's like the computer or a book that like became digitalized. I don't remember quite what it was, but it just reminds me of this premise so much. So I got to page 64-65 into this book and I can't remember why I put it down, but it wasn't because it wasn't good. Like, I was actually really enjoying it. So I am so thrilled to be picking this up again. I feel like every single book on my shelf that has been kind of like paused or DNF'd just stares at me and makes me feel super guilty. So I am so ready to not feel guilty about this one anymore and actually properly enjoy it. So obviously I will be reading it for the prompt, A Book with a Haunted Library, but also for blood used as magic because there is blood magic in this book, and I feel like that is one of the prompts that is hardest to find a book for. Here we go. If you want some inspiration and you have this on your shelf, definitely pick this up for that prompt. Onto my second book featuring vampires, Lucy Undying by Kirsten White. Another super anticipated book among the book community. Also the longest book on this list. I did not realize how long this was and how tiny the text was in this book. I'm actually kind of terrified, but I am going to go for it. I'm gonna try my hardest to finish this within the readathon, even if I have to spread it over like the whole time. So this follows the story of Lucy Westenra, who was one of Dracula's victims in Whitby in the original Dracula book by Bram Stoker. That is one of my favourite parts of that book, the setting of Whitby and what happens to Lucy. Like, that plot line I think is the best part of the book, only rivaled by Jonathan Harker's like diary entries at the beginning. But this is the story of Lucy and her becoming a vampire. I'm a sucker for a Dracula retelling. I love A Dowry of Blood. One of my favourite books to this day, and a book that I read I think for my first or second vampathon. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a go. I have read a book by Kirsten White before, The Guinevere Deception, and I did enjoy it, but I didn't think it was like the best thing ever. It didn't blow me away, and I wasn't sure about like the writing or the pacing, so this is a little bit of a gamble, but it has been long enough to try one of her books again, so I'm gonna go for this one. I can't lie, I feel like I was super influenced by the cover with this one, and I hope it's not one of those cases where the cover draws you in and then it's like not too good. The classic example of that for me is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Core. I don't even want to talk about that one because that will just bring negative energy to this book, but that is the classic case of having a beautiful cover and then the inside's not matching. I'm going to be reading Lucy Undying for vampire main character and Bats or Blood on the cover because we've got both on this one. You can see the bats here and they're on the back as well, and then also she's been bitten. She's got bats on her dress, she's got blood on her neck. It's perfect. For the prompts, a horror book and a book with witches, we've got a folk horror anthology. The Gathering Dark, another book that features Tori Bovalino. She edited this one and she's written one story in this anthology. This is another absolutely knockout cover. So this contains, I think, 10 folkloric tales. They're all supposed to be within the horror genre, and at least one of the stories in this features a witch, which is why I'm using it for the witch prompt. I think that one's Courtney Gold's Third Burn. I did scroll through a slightly ridiculous number of Goodreads reviews to double check there were witches in this. I think there are witches in one of the stories, so I am including it for that prompt. But what I'm hoping to do with this one is to break up the longer books and kind of like read a story here and there, maybe read like 1 or 2 stories every single day throughout the readathon. I am scared of how many long books I've got on this TBR, so this could be a huge lifesaver and just like a nice constant running throughout the week. A super short story that I'm going to be reading. I feel slightly embarrassed counting this as a whole book for 2 prompts, but I'm going to be reading The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. So I'm not going to be reading this whole book. This is a whole collection. I did start reading it. It is slightly boring, but I picked this up when I was in New York because I desperately wanted to read the original story of The Headless Horseman. I had just watched the movie adaptation before going there. I was totally obsessed and I wanted to read the source material. The story of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is only like 25 pages or so it does feel like a little bit of a cheat. I'm not going to mark it as a book read on Goodreads or anything, but I really just want to read the story around Halloween. I wanted to last year and I didn't get around to it, so I am including this on my vampathon TBR, so it definitely happens. So let's find out what prompts we're reading it for. Okay, so the first one, read a book in the dark. I feel like a short story is the easiest one to read in the dark. I don't have to spend too long reading it. I feel like that one's self-explanatory. And I've also put it down for gothic or spooky cover just because it is this beautiful outline of a tree with a moon. I think it definitely captures that kind of spooky autumn night. And then once I finish The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'm going to be reading Hollow, the graphic novel. I already read this, but I am dying to reread it and I really highly recommend it actually. It's by Shannon Waters, Brandon Boyer-White and Berenice Nell. They are just the dream team because this is probably my favourite graphic novel I have ever read. It is loosely inspired by The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, obviously. It's set in the same town and it follows these teenagers in present day. The Headless Horseman returns to Sleepy Hollow and haunts this town, like runs after these teenagers. It's just the perfect mix between like cute and cozy, comical and spooky, and it's actually really well paced. Like you don't get through it too quickly. There's so much going on plot wise. I'll be of course reading this for spooky graphic novel or manga and also spooky middle grade. I feel like this is a loose interpretation of middle grade. It is a teen graphic novel, but I do feel like it leans a little bit on the younger side. It definitely is a bit juvenile and it's not like super mature humor or anything like that. So I do feel like middle grade, like older middle grade readers would love this. So I am including it as a middle grade, even though it's not technically classed that. But I have seen loads of other reviews saying the same thing. So I feel like I'm not alone in that opinion. But obviously I'm 26 and I lap this up, so I feel like this is for everyone. Can't wait to reread this, especially after reading The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We have reached the penultimate book on this list and I just never thought I'd actually be saying these words again. Is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I don't know what to say. Like I feel slightly unhinged putting this on the list. It is another super long book with small writing. My copy is also so old. I think my mum read this one. This is the 2007 edition. It was first published in the US in 2005, then in the UK in 2006. So this is the next year. So I guess this is like just the main paperback release. It's an old book. It is freaking yellow. Like the pages, they're yellow. I've never picked up Twilight for any of the vampathons I've taken part in and hosted so far, and it just feels wrong not to read. I was gonna say original vampire story, that would be Dracula. My original vampire story, there we go, the first one I ever read. So, Twilight by Stephanie Meyer will be read for a book to sink your teeth into, and I will also be reading it for vampire book to movie. So that is the last prompt on the list. Every single book has covered 2 prompts, so that is all of them. I've mentioned all of them today. Basically, Twilight, Bella moves to Forks, meets Edward. He's kind of weird. We don't know what's going on with him, but obviously we do because we read the blurb. Edward and his whole family are vampires, and Bella falls in love with him, and that's the book. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That was my vampathon TBR. I am pretty set with it. I decided it like 2 weeks ago because I got really excited and I've been staring at it ever since, just waiting to be able to read it. Once I upload this video, we have only a few days until vampathon begins. So I hope if you're interested that you join us. I will be linking the Twitter down below, as well as, like I said, Jodie's announcement video where you will find out all of the information. We're doing a Instagram challenge where you can upload photos every day of your TBR and like other fun Instagram challenges. If you're planning on joining us, let me know what you're gonna read in the comments below. That's it from me. I hope you are having the best day wherever you are. I hope you're enjoying October and all of your spooky reading. I am so ready for vampathon. You'll find me sitting waiting here until vampathon starts.